What's going on, guys? Graham Gius and Matthews here with BleacherReport.com and ahead of NWA Alwayz Ready coming up on Sunday, or rather Saturday, July 11th. We're talking to the man himself, the pay-per-view, the man that's the pay-per-view is named after, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, also the Impact Digital Champion. You've seen him pretty much everywhere right now. Matt Cardona. Matt, what's going on, man?
Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, Alwayz Ready, a pay-per-view named after me. I'm sure a lot of the boys in the back are not happy about it. Posting graphics with my logo on it, but hey, you know, this isn't show friends, it's show business.
Nick Aldis is one of those men. You're facing him in the main event for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in a rematch from just a couple of months ago. Could you have ever imagined, even a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, not only being in the main event of a pay-per-view, you probably would have expected that, but having a pay-per-view named after yourself? I mean, that seems pretty surreal.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I walked into NWA with one goal in mind: to be the top dog, to be the champion. And that's what I did. I went right after Trevor Murdoch. I beat Trevor Murdoch. And it did not make a lot of people happy. I did not make any friends in the locker room, especially with the things I said about NWA. You know, as a kid, I thought it was old, dated, and boring. And before I got there, I thought it was old, dated, and boring. So I want to change NWA. I want to help NWA. Of course, selfishly help myself, right? So I'm promoting these shows. I'm promoting the NWA, but I'm promoting myself. I'm the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. Of course, I respect the history and the tradition and the legacy of the NWA, especially that championship. But the NWA's gotta get to that next level, and I'm the guy to do it.
And bringing in entrance music, kind of upping up the presentation of the NWA, I know has been a goal of yours since you arrived. We're coming up in almost 6 months since you arrived at the Hard Times 2 pay-per-view just 6 months ago. When you initially arrived, obviously you had a goal in mind of becoming champion. You did that. But that first day you come in, you expect to win gold. Did you expect the run to last this long? I mean, obviously we've seen you in Impact for the last year plus. You've been there ever since. Some people come into the NWA, they're in there for a little while, do a one-shot takeoff. You've been a regular ever since, defending your championship against a variety of opponents. You've had all these different shows. Again, in the main event of this one, when you initially started out and were talking to Billy Corgan about coming into the company, was this something you expect the last 6 months?
Yeah, you know, so there were no long-term plans. There's still no long-term plans. I don't have an NWA contract. I'm proud to be the champion. I'm very proud that the pay-per-view is called Alwayz Ready. I'm gonna have some beautiful ring gear for that. And, you know, it'll be great to see my logo everywhere. I'm sure there'll be entrance music for that, like there are for the big shows. I'll come out to Alwayz Ready. The show is called Alwayz Ready. My nickname's Alwayz Ready. So it's going to be a pretty surreal night.
Yeah, it's going to be a big night, man. I think we're all looking forward to it. And I think what the cool thing about the NWA run has been so far is that of all the different places you've been, the couple of appearances you made in AEW a couple of years ago, in Impact initially, you were a fan favorite everywhere you were, obviously kind of continuing off what you did in WWE. NWA, and obviously GCW as well, right before that you were doing the big deathmatch legend run, which has been great as well. I guess NWA kind of came secondary to that. Did you see that as a risk for yourself as someone who's always been beloved by the internet and a lot of other fans, myself included, stuff like that, turning heel for the first time, not ever, obviously, but for the first time in a long time, doing something entirely at that point out of your comfort zone? It felt like a risk, and obviously it's paid off. You've been one of the biggest free agents outside of WWE in the last couple of years. It's been really cool to see. But when you do the GCW stuff, when you do the NWA stuff, do you have like your doubts in your mind, like, what if this doesn't work? Like, I have to go back to what I was doing before. Like, what's going through your mind at that point?
So, you know, when I went to GCW, I was hated. They were flipping me off. I wasn't used to that. Then when I won the championship, throwing bottles at me, throwing pizza cutters at me. There were people in the crowd with my action figure being hung with a noose. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And you know, independent wrestling has really taken off, I think, to new heights, because, you know, there's social media, there's Fight TV, it's streaming. It's not just, you know, if you go to Atlantic City, New Jersey to watch GCW, it's not just the couple hundred people in attendance. People all over the country, all over the world are watching. So the next couple of months were really interesting for me on the independents. You know, it'd be like 25% of the people would boo me. A couple of smart fans, you know, would flip me off. And then I got to a point where it's like, I'd come through the curtain. I'm like, am I going to be cheered or booed tonight? I wasn't sure. It was kind of 50-50. And eventually got to like 100% boos, 100% middle fingers. Now, I think a lot of the people, they want to be part of the show. They want to flip me off. They want that picture to be out there where I flip them right back off. But it's been a lot of fun. And if there are people who genuinely hate me, that's great. I don't care. I'm not trying to prove doubters wrong. I'm here to prove myself and my fans right. And if I get some supporters along the way, some new fans, great. Glad to have you. But I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. This is me. Love me or hate me. And I think, a lot of people love me, but a lot of people hate me. So when I walk into NWA, I'm being me. What's so bad about trying to change the company? What's so bad about some goddamn entrance music? What's so bad about, taking that title and defending it all over the place? Trevor Murdoch was a champion. When I won that title, I had to take the dust off it. It was dusty because it was never defended. I bring that title everywhere. If anyone's able to beat me, they're going to say, what the hell happened to this title? It's all scratched. It's all, the leather's all worn, because I'm bringing it everywhere, whether I'm bringing it to independent wrestling shows, Impact Wrestling, GCW, the Maldives on my honeymoon. I'm bringing it everywhere because I'm proud to be the champion.
And what I think is so cool about it too, is that what we're seeing with you as the NWA champion, you're carrying across everywhere. Like you said, it kind of started with GCW, then it bled into NWA, but you were kind of showing a different side of yourself in Impact. So it didn't have that continuity until up a couple months ago. Obviously, yourself with Chelsea Green, your wife on the show, we're seeing that now, which is cool.
Right.
Brian Myers is getting involved. We have the major players in Impact. Getting that continuity, I guess, across all companies, I think is what's really cool. And it's almost unprecedented in a way, and not just companies, but like major companies with television. Again, like I said, NWA, Impact, GCW, doing the same thing across all these companies. Was that a goal for you when you kind of started this out to kind of do the same thing? Does it make it easier for you as opposed to like, all right, I just got booed out of the building of this GCW show. Let me go to Impact and be a fan favorite now. Like, is it easy for you now to kind of do the same thing across everywhere you've been?
Right. So I'm not changing who I am. It's the crowd who, they change how they respond to me. Right. Sure. So I'm the same person, whether it be a GCW or Impact when I was a quote unquote babyface. Do I like that I can present a similar package all across the board? Yes. It's a lot easier. Like you said, for instance, we can continue things GCW to Impact. Maybe, Brian Myers even came to NWA to wrestle Nick Aldis because I'm always ready, but I'm not always available. So there was this NWA show. Said, sorry, pal, I'm booked. You got to give me these dates way in advance, pal. But so it's a lot of fun that way to incorporate, this major Wrestling Fever podcast crew, whether it be Chelsea or Smart Mark Sterling or Hornswoggle or Brian Myers. And we've popped up in NWA, GCW, random indies. So it's a lot of fun that way because, the fans are smart these days. They know, they follow everything, and like I said, Wisconsin, it's streaming somewhere. There's clips somewhere. It's on someone's vlog. People are seeing it. So times are changing, and I'm glad that everyone's getting on board,
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And you mentioned it right there. Quick plug. You mentioned the major figure wrestling podcast you guys have been doing since you left WWE a few years ago, and everything else you guys have been doing with that, with the shows and getting everyone else involved. Do you have any other major events with that coming up on the horizon?
Yeah. So the Major Wrestling Fever podcast, something we started in August of 2020. Luckily, we were smart enough to realize, hey, let's call it, our own thing, our own names. Because if I wasn't even thinking that we'd get released, but I didn't want WWE to own it.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way with my old YouTube shows, Each Rolling Out Story. So when we got released, we had it, right? Thank God. And we've been doing so many things. It started off as a 45-minute podcast. Now it's, we have a podcast every week. We have a podcast network. We do touring live shows. We just did a live wrestling show. We make our own wrestling figures, Major Bendy's. But I love it. I love, like, right now, we just finished our third live wrestling show. I'm already planning the fourth. We have our 13th live podcast. I think there's like 7 tickets left. It's about to be sold out. So I'm super excited for what's going on. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't really feel like work because I'm enjoying what I do and I'm my own boss.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. If you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't exactly feel like work, which is perfect. And it's a great spot that you're in right now where you're in such high demand. You're making appearances across all these companies. You're killing it right now, doing some of the best work of your career, which I mean, is saying a lot considering you've been around for a very long time as well. I think a lot of people tend to forget you've been around for what, 15, 20 years now. You made your main roster debut in 07, right?
Yeah, made the main roster debut in 07. Started wrestling 2003, first match 04. But yeah, main roster 07. And it's funny because, you know, I do, you know, independents every weekend or signings, right? Like I'm my gimmick table, if you will, my 8x10s are not like, okay, I have the Intercontinental title, WrestleMania, of course, people want that, but it's not like it's all new stuff. You know, it's me with the NWA title. It's the major players. It's me and Chelsea Green. It's my bloody GCW. I just put out one, the Ultimo Broski, where I have all the titles. You know, I'm not living in the past. Back in the day, they'd leave WWE, they'd go to the indies, they do the same old shtick, you know, honky tonk man it up, you know, sell some gimmicks and fade into obscurity. Not me. I'm proving that you don't need WWE, you don't need AEW to be a successful pro wrestler. And I don't just mean wins and losses. I mean money. That's what I'm talking about. And I would argue that success should be defined by happiness. Not so much money. Of course, we need money to live. And trust me, I'm making a lot of it. But I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I'd argue I'm the highest I've ever been.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I think I would agree with you right there. I mean, just from a fan standpoint, you definitely are killing it right now with everywhere you've been. And you mentioned, I think for a lot of people, they just even from a fan standpoint, I think they define success. If you're not in WWE, then you're not successful, which I think is so untrue more now than it's ever been. And you don't have to go back there. You don't even have to be there in the first place in order to be a success.
Because I would argue this to those people, right? Okay, let's say they define success by wins and losses.
Sure.
Which I think is stupid. But okay, I'm winning more than ever. I have more titles than ever. I'm having more mainstream matches than ever. And if you define it by money, I'm making more money than I made in WWE. So like by any definition, and I'm way happier. So by any definition of success, I'm more successful.
Yeah, no, that's true. Exactly.
Whatever they want to come up with, whatever they want to throw at me, whatever, you know, and trust me, I see all the tweets. People, you know, oh, you just wrestled in front of 50 fans. It's not 50 fans, but whatever. I see what they're trying to say. And listen, I'd be lying if I said I never wanted to wrestle in Madison Square Garden again, or never wanted to wrestle in a big stadium for a WrestleMania. Of course I would. You know, I'm not saying that, but I'm also not saying that I'm not doing everything I'm doing now. Oh, what can I do to get back to WWE? Or what can I do to go to AEW? I don't give a shit. Sorry, I don't. If Tony Khan or Vince McMahon or Johnny Ace or Bruce Pritchard called me, of course I'd pick up the phone. I'd have a conversation, but that's not my goal right now.
And that's a great spot to be in when you know you don't need them. I think is when people do their best work. And I think you're proving that right now. Quick side note, though, you mentioned Vince. Did he respond to the picture that you sent him of all the titles? Because that was hysterical when you shared that.
Let me get the exact. I don't want to misquote Vincent Kenny McMahon.
Yeah.
So let me find the exact response
funny
for you here. Let's see. Don't want to misquote Vince.
No, you can't.
Wow, in caps, WOW. So I mean,
it's so funny.
If you don't believe me, it's right there. There it is.
That is hysterical.
There it is.
Oh man, that is so funny. Man, just the idea of that. The fact has he always like texted and communicated people with like that sort of thing? Because it's just hard to imagine, you know.
The weirdest thing is for years I tried to listen. I always had a good relationship with Vince.
Yep.
Especially the last couple of years, where I would go into his office to not necessarily get things done, but like I was sick of like pitching ideas to the writers, all that BS. I wanted to pitch it right to Vince. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, you know, because Vince wants it to happen. You know what I'm saying? No more, well, you know, I talked to Vince or they were in the meeting. They said, no, I want to find out. I'd go right to Vince. And listen, not everything I pitched happened. Majority didn't, but at least I found out from Vince and not some writer. You know what I'm saying? But I never had Vince's number. I never texted with him. And then last year, I got a happy birthday text and I'm like, who's this 203 number? I was asking some people like, that's Vince McMahon. I was like, oh shit. So I just text him every once in a while for the hell of it.
Was your birthday just recently in the month of May?
It was, yes.
Happy belated birthday. I thought it was in May.
I did not get a birthday text this year from Vince.
The fact you got a response on that text though is cool. So I mean, it's something. Maybe he was like, I just talked to him recently, so I don't really have to wish him.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
That's funny. And with a character like this, again, not like, will you go back or should you go back? Whatever. That stuff is all irrelevant. We've learned before. I mean, Cody Rhodes, he's talked a lot about you everywhere he's been, which is awesome to see. And
sure,
the fact he's sharing love for his friends. He said he may never go back, and he did, but that's irrelevant. My question would be, with what you're doing right now, with the character that you're doing, do you think this would work on a stage like that? I mean, I think it would, but I mean, every company is different, obviously. Do you think it would in an ideal world?
I mean, there's certain things I'd have to tone down, like the cursing.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
But other than that, I absolutely think it would, because like it's just a different side of me. It's the evolution. You look at me throughout my career. If you took, a bunch of different photos or even videos of just even my appearance throughout my career, it's like, this is the same person, because it's so drastic. But I believe, I think Chris Jericho is one of those who really proves this point. Like, you got to innovate, you got to change yourself, you got to grow, or else you get left behind.
Yep.
So I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. You've really reinvented yourself. I mean, not just even in the last couple of years, but I think, again, a lot of people forget during your time in WWE, every different stage was different from the other, like becoming Intercontinental Champion and everything else you've done, even from 10 years ago with the Long Island True Story stuff.
Right.
You've drastically changed every stage of the way, which is super cool to see. But I mean, with that being said, I mean, if you were to ever go back, I feel like, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but like, could it be as Matt Cardona? I mean, putting aside all the name changes stuff that we're hearing about now and we're seeing on TV, put that stuff aside, because everything changes from day to day. I feel like there's more value now, even though you were Zack Ryder for so long, there's way more value now with you as Matt Cardona. Like, yes. Cody Rhodes was always Cody Rhodes. Like, for example, if you were to go back for a Rumble one-off or something, I think it'd be a lot cooler if you came back with your current, like we kind of saw with Nikki, which he's always been Nikki James, obviously, but like with the hardcore country stuff. Would you have any thoughts on that?
I wouldn't be against coming back as Zack Ryder with my, I would love my Alwayz Ready music. Sure. It would basically be me, just with the old Zack Ryder name, no more O Radio, none of that stuff. Yeah. Even though Downstate did make the harder version of it, but listen, I would love to come back as me, Matt Cardona, but I think realistically, the WWE has that IP. They've invested a lot in that name. So I would have no problem. Even if it was just a one-off at Royal Rumble or something like that, I'd come out to the Zack Ryder name, but it would be me, It would be interesting. I think if I were to come out, I don't know if the people would boo. I think I'd get a huge pop. I think I'd be a babyface again.
Yeah, no, at least if only for one night, And the cool thing is too, even if you don't use O Radio, which you said you would, and you own all your own stuff, which is cool, it's the same band. It's Downstate. You know what I mean? So it's just a similarly sounding song with different lyrics. So it wouldn't almost even matter,
Right. Yeah. So if it was the Downstate version of the O Radio, I'd be fine with that. But yeah, I mean, that story is because like I was pitching for years, like after the YouTube show died, and I dropped the headband and glasses, and like, listen, I can't write the show. I can't write what they're going to do for me on the show. Of course, I'm always trying to change my look, trying to change like my attitude and character. But you can't get that across if there's no platform, right? And it wasn't until I won the Intercontinental title that I felt like I had some ground to stand on, where I went to Kevin Dunn. I said, hey, listen, this band Downstate, you've worked with them before. I think at the time they were doing Ziggler's music, Miz's music, which they still do. I said, they made a remake of my song. It's on YouTube. They already did it.
Yep.
Can we just use that? Can we just use that? And long story short, the band Downstate wasn't even a band anymore. They had to get back together to write this song. And now look, they've done Cody's song since, they've done my song. So now they're back together. The band is back together, so to speak. And it's all because of me. I take credit for that.
That's so funny you mentioned that, dude. I never knew that, because I remember when they came out with the Downstate version of your song, and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, the original song is a classic because everyone's known it for so long, but like, I'm thinking the Downstate version is awesome. Because like you said, by that point, they'd already done Miz's music, Ziggler's, even Alex Riley back in the day for the long time. You know what I mean? So it was weird that they didn't let you use it for the longest time.
Yeah, it was just sitting on YouTube for like at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, for a while. And then they finally let you use it. And then because of that, like you said, because you helped them kind of get back together, so to speak, Cody's now using his music in WWE. Right. Obviously, your wife has music by Downstate as well.
They just did Major Players, which is available Apple Music, Spotify. So they're making everything.
They're killing it right. At Downstate, I think it might be one of the only bands that has been used. And I noticed that when Cody came back to WrestleMania, that has been used in every major company. And even actively now, like in every major company you watch, NWA Impact. I mean, obviously most of it is because of you, but in all the companies you appear for, but WWE, Ring of Honor, all this other stuff is Downstate music, which is really cool to see. And they're killing it right now.
What I think makes them so talented is that you don't necessarily know that they're all downstate until someone tells you. They don't all sound exactly the same, which I like. Yeah,
exactly. They all have their different sounding songs, which is sweet. And kind of going off topic from the downstate stuff, but since you left WWE, it's been cool because even while you were there, you were always having that connection with the fans, which is funny now because you're a heel and you're turning them against you, which is funny. But like even when you were there, like I remember purchasing one of the trading cards or a shirt or whatever it was, and then you would send those people to their home address there, like your own like autographed card. And you did that multiple times. Yes. Yeah. You did that a lot. Like with, I have at least 2 or 3 different Zack Ryder trading cards with your autograph on it, which is cool. And you did that even after you left with Pro Wrestling Tees. You called everyone individually to leave a voicemail. That's a lot of work, but it's really cool that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, I do that every once in a while. Listen, I can't do it for every shirt I have or every item I have, but we do it every once in a while. It's just a way to say thank you, right? Yeah. And sometimes I got to take a step back. Like, how cool would it be if I was a kid, not necessarily a kid, but like a fan, and someone I was supporting called me up to say thanks? Yeah. Because I've been the fan on the other side of the autograph table, right? So I love taking a step back and appreciating, like, holy shit, like I made it now. Like maybe I will impact someone to, be a wrestler, or not even be a wrestler, maybe take a chance on themselves,
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the fact that you grew up a fan is a huge advantage because you kind of see it from a fan's perspective. And obviously you're still a fan now, which is awesome. So that definitely gives you advantage as far as that goes. But as we wind down here, man, like I said, you've been practically everywhere. So kind of just tell me a little bit of how, not like the elongated version, but how different is each place from a WWE to an AEW where you spend some time, Impact now, obviously NWA. How different for you are like those backstage atmospheres, and even not just like the negative, but I'm talking more like the positives and what the strengths are of each company that you've been to.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, obviously WWE is, number one, right? There's no denying. AEW is incredible as well. And then, Impact was super great for me because I needed a second chance to kind of find myself, so Impact, whether, even though I was a quote unquote babyface in the beginning, I was able to have like the matches I want to have. I was able, the first time I was able to talk backstage, I just kind of read what was on the sheet, and Tommy Dreamer, it was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm reading what's on the sheet. He's like, no, say whatever you want. I was like, what? Like, that's awesome. And then when you go to NWA, there's not even a sheet of paper that gives you an outline. It just says, Matt Cardona, segment 5, 2 minutes. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
But then, I'm saying stuff that the locker room doesn't like, and I know they're going back to the office and complaining. And I don't care because I'm trying to create some controversy, create some buzz. I want people to buy tickets to the show, whether they want to see me win or whether they want to see me get my ass kicked. I want them to buy tickets to see me one way or another. Because if they're indifferent, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. And you've accomplished that. I mean, so far you're the guy in NWA as the champion, and even in Impact, you mentioned them a little bit as well. Just going there and arriving at like literally the perfect time. I know you came in at one of the early January pay-per-views of last year. Unfortunately, there were no fans at that point. So you didn't get like that big reaction. And even AEW, were there fans for that one, or they were just like the wrestlers in the crowd?
I think it was the rest. Maybe there were some. It was not like a full house. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
I mean, it was a noticeable reaction. But that being said, though, you arrive at the perfect time because now Impact is killing it. I was just talking to Eric Young a week or two ago, and again, no bullshit, even from a fan standpoint, the best product week to week that we're seeing
I
right
agree.
now.
I have to say, I agree with you on that. Impact has that stink on it, right?
Yep.
Which is unfortunate. But I feel like Impact and Matt Cardona, their stories are kind of, parallel, where there's been highs and lows, well documented, but we're both on the rise. You watch Impact week to week. Everyone, the storylines make sense. Everyone's doing something. Everyone's busting their ass. The matches are awesome. And the fans are energetic when we go to these shows. And we got Slammiversary coming up, 20 years.
Yeah.
I hope I'm part of the show. I'm the goddamn digital media world champion. I should be on the show. But it's fun to be able to do, you know, a Slammiversary, which is a big show. But a couple weeks prior, I'm doing Alwayz Ready, which is my show for NWA. So it's been a lot of fun doing everything. My suitcase is ripping because I have so many bags. I'm sorry, so many belts in that bag.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I'm not going to complain about having championships.
I was going to say, you're okay with the fact you're carrying around so much weight in your bag with all the championships you hold right now?
Yeah, it is kind of annoying sometimes, you know, when I'm flying home and I'm all beat up and I have to lift that suitcase on top, you know.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it doesn't work. I need Chelsea's help.
That's funny. Well, it's a nice workout if nothing else. How often?
That's
I mean,
sure.
you definitely dealt with this in WWE as well, and everywhere you've been. But like, even to this day, how often are people taking those titles out? As far as like the airport people,
every
they're
week.
like, oh, every single week, even to this
every
day.
Week.
Wow.
Every week, yeah.
What do they say?
Like, sometimes it's a fan, sometimes they have no idea what it is, you know, because, you know, it goes through that x-ray and they're like, what is it? Especially when I have like, listen, I don't bring all 7 of them at once, you know, but there are times where I have like 4 in there, you know, like, what is this? When it goes through the x-ray, they have to check it out. Yeah.
That's funny. I mean, even to this day, are they still making like, does it bother you at this point? It's like, all right, I'm just expecting it like it is what it is.
It's expected. It's expected. Yeah, I know. I mean, because you're not going to check a belt. You can't do that. That's an amateur move. Can't do that. No way. You don't check your gear, and you definitely don't check belts. No way.
May never see that thing again. So at least that's a veteran move. So you know that by this point. But as the Impact Digital Media World Champion, as you mentioned, OG of the Twitter game, you've been on the Twitter machine for well over a decade. It's almost weird how there's like a lore of like history of Twitter. It's crazy. Like, and you're at the forefront of that, being one of the first people to join it. Who would you say at like at this point is like, in addition to yourself, like one of the kings and queens, so to speak, of the Twitter in the wrestling space that you see like, wow, they're really good on Twitter, regardless of what company they work for right now?
Well, I got to give credit to The Miz because he's the one who told me about Twitter.
That's funny.
In 2009, I remember it was like WrestleMania week. And like Twitter, like why do people care about like your what you're doing, your status updates? So I got to give Miz credit, and even now to this day, he's killing it. You know, he knows how to promote himself, right? He's got Miz and Mrs. He's got the reels. He's always putting Maurice like in skimpy outfits on there. He knows how to get likes. He knows how to get likes. You know, but it's social media, it's such an important tool for any wrestler, whether you're well established or just starting out. You know, it's free advertisement, right? You know, and Twitter, YouTube, whatever you want to use, TikTok, it's all hand out. That's the challenging part. When you know, someone backstage at independent shows like, hey, you know, what can I do on social media to stand out? I'm like, well, I don't know. You got to figure that out yourself. But it's free, right? Yeah. So I'm a big believer in content. Like you can't have too much content. You know what I'm saying? Like, just throw it all out there and see what sticks and find yourself and find your audience. And like, you know, for instance, I did that with the wrestling figures, right? I found it's such a niche audience. You know, if someone were to look, and people ask me, oh, it's not like the actual podcast part of it. You know, with some ads, it's okay, but it's so much more, you know, because we do the live shows and the merch and the action figures, and we got a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel, and we got a PBR sponsor. So it's like, I say crumbs make crumb cake. You know, you got to find something and just attack it. If you want something, if you're passionate enough about it, just attack those goals and make it happen.
Yeah, the same mindset today as even it was 13 years ago, even in the infancy of Twitter. I mean, it's the way that you attack, and if you're passionate about it and you're going to find a way to make it work, then you'll find a way to make it work, which is perfect. But kind of on that same note, where can people find you? Obviously on the Twitter machine at the Matt Cardona, but as far as the show, the podcast, as you mentioned, upcoming shows and the PBR sponsorship stuff, like I know there's a million things. But
we could have another interview. Just find me on social media at the Matt Cardona. You'll see what I'm doing, whether I'm doing shows, selling wrestling figures, putting on a wrestling show, a live podcast. You'll find me there. Just Twitter and Instagram at the Matt Cardona. I guess a cheap plug. Go to majorpodmerch.com. We have our own action figures for sale. We just released 2 Jeff Jarrett and Conrad Thompson figures. The My World Major Bendy's Conrad Thompson's first ever action figure. The company that we started. Available right now, majorpodmerch.com. And of course, always listen, Dave Meltzer's not going to rate this 5 stars, 6 stars, whatever. It's going to be a brawl. It's going to be a fight. Nick has something to prove. I have something to prove. He has backup. I have backup. He has a crazy wife. I have a crazy wife. This is going to be a brawl. This is not going to be a Matt Classic. It's going to be a fight that you don't want to miss.
Now we're talking in late May right now. By the time this goes up in early June, will there be a stipulation added to the match or not? As of right now, I don't think there is, right?
You tell me. At first, I thought it was a steel cage, and I said it was going to be a death match. Listen, I'm always ready, right? Yeah. So it doesn't matter. I proved that I can do it all. So I don't care if it's a goddamn blindfold match. I'll be there.
Like you said, it's the main event nonetheless. NWA World Heavyweight Championship, Matt Cardona, Nick Aldis. NWA Alwayz Ready live on pay-per-view and on Fight TV live Saturday, June 11th. We're all looking forward to it. Matt, this has been great, man. Thanks so much for the time. Been a fan since May of 2009. You were on my short list of bucket list interviews up there with like
May 2009, huh?
Long time, man. Since
that's the beginning of the woo. That's the beginning of the one-legged tights.
Exactly. When it was still like, I don't know if it was cool to be a Zack Ryder fan at that point, so to speak.
May 2009. I don't think so, pal. I don't think so, but I appreciate it. You're an OG broski. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother. Very happy to cross this off the list and talk with you here today. Thanks, man. I appreciate all, and I appreciate the time today, and best luck with everything going forward.
Thanks a lot, dude.